The touch of presence, being attuned presence, is not a passive state. It's not simply being in the room or within physical proximity to someone. Presence is attention disciplined by care. It's the decision to truly show up in the moment with your full awareness, your emotional availability, and your moral focus. And in the context of love, particularly the kind that penetrates a man's heart, presence is the first and most profound to touch. When we think of touch, we often reduce it to the physical, but the truth is, physical contact without presence is empty. It can feel mechanical, even alienating. Presence transforms a simple touch, the brush of a hand on a shoulder, a palm held gently against a forearm, into something sacred, into something felt, and more than that, into something remembered. Men are rarely told this, but they carry an immense silent longing to be seen, not in the way society often sees them, as roles to perform, as problems to solve, as figures to admire or ignore, but in the way that matters most, as vulnerable beings with hopes, fears, dreams, doubts. Presence says, I'm with you right now, and I'm not scanning for flaws. I'm witnessing you as a whole person. That is rare. That is healing. And so, the touch of presence becomes more than affection. It becomes affirmation. A simple act, such as gently placing your hand on his hand while he's speaking, can be emotionally seismic if it's done with full attention. No distractions, no hidden agenda. Just a shared moment of human connection. That act communicates, "Orange, you're safe here. You don't have to impress me. I'm not going anywhere." That kind of presence disarms a man in the best way. It brings him back from the battlefield, whether that's the external war of work, responsibility, and social expectation, or the internal war of shame, inadequacy, and self-doubt. The presence of a woman who sees him not just for his utility but for his humanity can be utterly transformative. There's something else. The mind, especially a man's, is often trained to solve, to fix, to perform. So when he speaks, he's not always looking for solutions. Sometimes he just wants to exist beside someone who listens without judgment or interruption. When you listen with your full body, your eyes steady, your posture open, your hand gently placed near him, you offer a sanctuary. You offer peace. And peace is addictive. Not the numbing kind that comes from escapism, but the rejuvenating kind that comes from being seen without being evaluated. When your presence communicates, "You're enough as you are," he begins to let his guard down, slowly at first, carefully, but eventually fully. Now let's talk about timing. Presence isn't constant, and it's not always required. People need space, silence, solitude. But when it is offered, it has to be real. A half-present person is more damaging than one who walks away, because false presence mimics care but delivers disconnection. It breeds resentment. So if you choose to be there, really be there. And remember, presence is also felt through restraint. It's in the pauses. It's in not jumping in with solutions. It's in the patience to let him gather his thoughts. Sometimes you won't need to say anything at all. You'll just sit near him, place your hand on his, and that will be enough. Because in that quiet moment, he feels something more powerful than words. He feels accepted. Ultimately, the touch of presence isn't about technique, it's about truth. You cannot fake attunement. The nervous system is too honest for that. People, especially men trained to be guarded, will sense when the care is genuine and when it's a tactic. So don't offer presence to get something. Offer it because you believe in the inherent value of another person. Offer it because you know that intimacy, real intimacy, begins where attention meets compassion. And when you master this, when your touch is backed by focused, intentional presence, you don't just trigger love, you earn it. And more importantly, you awaken it. Because presence, true presence, is love made visible. The touch of encouragement, affirming strength. There's something that needs to be said plainly. Men are not invincible. But the world often insists they be. From a young age, many boys are trained to carry the weight of responsibility, to suppress emotion, to chase competence and achievement as the only markers of worth. They are told, directly or subtly, that their value lies in what they produce, what they provide, what they protect. And so they grow into men who often bear their struggles in silence. Now, imagine what happens. Deep within, When a man who has spent years carrying burdens no one sees hears a voice from someone he loves that says, "Sin, I see what you're doing. I believe in you. I respect your fight," that doesn't just feel good. That awakens something ancient, something vital. That is the power of the touch of encouragement. We're not talking about empty praise or ego stroking. We're talking about the kind of touch that carries truth, physical and emotional reinforcement that recognizes a man's effort, resilience, and integrity. A touch on the back when he's working late. A hand on his chest when he doubts himself. A squeeze of his shoulder when he's about to make a hard decision. These gestures, when offered with real belief in his capability, do something profound. They affirm his masculinity without exploiting it. You see, encouragement isn't just kindness, it's fuel. It says, "You are not alone in this. I see your labor. I honor your mission." And for many men, that kind of support isn't something they even know they need until they feel it. And here's the paradox. The stronger the man, the more pressure he often feels to not need anyone. But that strength is often a mask, one shaped by necessity, fear, and habit. When a woman reaches out with encouragement, not as flattery, but as conviction, she doesn't weaken him. She releases him from isolation. And when she does it through touch, something as simple as laying her head on his shoulder after he shares his stress, or resting her hand on his as he speaks about his dreams, it creates emotional resonance. It's no longer just her words that encourage. It's her entire being. The world will critique him. The job will demand from him. The culture might reduce him. But when the woman he trusts reminds him, through her words and her physical presence, that he is enough, even when he's not finished, even when he's tired, something shifts. He starts to believe again. This kind of touch doesn't say, "when you have to be perfect." It says, "when you are worthy, even in progress." And that belief, expressed through physical reassurance and emotional clarity, is what gives a man the courage to keep building, to keep leading, to keep facing the world. Not because someone pities him, but because someone believes in him. That belief, that simple, quiet encouragement, becomes an internal voice. It stays with him in the late nights and the early mornings. It echoes when the self-doubt creeps in. And that voice is hers, not as an authority over him, but as a companion beside him. We must also remember that many men fear failure not because they're afraid to lose, but because they're afraid of disappointing the people they love. So when your touch says, "Chidon, you don't have to win every battle to be valuable," you give him a deeper sense of stability. That's not just emotional support. That's existential grounding. It's a tragic misunderstanding of modern culture that says men don't need to be encouraged, that they're already too confident, too privileged, too emotionless. The reality? Many are deeply alone in their strength, and many collapse not from external failure, but from the internal silence that follows the absence of real support. So if you want to love a man in a way that leaves a mark, don't just praise what he achieves, encourage who he is. And do it in moments when he least expects it, when he's not at his best, when he's uncertain, when he's quietly carrying the weight of everything and saying nothing about it. Because that is when encouragement matters most. The touch of encouragement is not merely about making him feel better. It's about reminding him of who he is and helping him become who he could be. It says, I don't just see the man you are. I see the man you're becoming, and I'm with you in the becoming. That's not just romantic, that's transformational. The touch of playfulness, sparking life. If you want to understand the depth of a man's affection, look at when he laughs, truly laughs, not because something is merely funny, but because he feels safe enough to drop the mask. Playfulness may seem lighthearted on the surface, but don't mistake it for triviality. It's one of the most profound expressions of intimacy and vitality. And when a woman offers it through the touch of playfulness, she's not just entertaining him, she's reviving something in him that the world often suppresses: the child, the lover, the human being beneath the armor. The modern man lives in a pressure cooker. He's expected to be composed, productive, rational, always in control. He's rewarded for being efficient, not for being spontaneous. So what happens over time is that he begins to associate affection with duty, relationship with obligation, and intimacy with performance. And in that equation, joy dies a quiet death. But then, something changes. There's a moment when the woman he loves flicks water at him while doing the dishes, or pokes his ribs when he's lost in thought, or pulls him into a spontaneous dance in the kitchen. That's not just cuteness. That's not immaturity. That's a disruption of the pattern, a reminder that there's more to life than solving problems. That kind of playful touch is electric. Why? Because it reconnects him to a part of himself that he's often forced to bury, his freedom. The man who laughs with you, genuinely, foolishly, fully, trusts you. He trusts that he can put down the sword and shield, even if only for a moment. That's not weakness. That's one of the most courageous things he can do. And when you offer that through lightness, through affection that doesn't demand anything, he starts to relax into love. Playfulness is not a trick. It's not a flirtation strategy. It's a signal. And we're not just surviving, we're living. That's crucial in a world where many relationships devolve into management projects, calendars, bills, chores, responsibilities. Important, yes. But if there's no laughter in your love, you're not building intimacy, you're just building logistics. When you reach out and nudge him, laugh with him, tease him gently, that's not childish, that's human. And here's the paradox. It's often in those playful moments that a man feels safest, because the pressure to perform disappears. He's not being asked to fix anything. He's being invited into presence. That's why physical playfulness, a surprise hug from behind, a pillow tossed across the bed, a sudden race to the car, holds so much power. It bypasses the intellect. It speaks to the body, the nervous system, the spirit. And for many men, it's those moments they remember the most, the unguarded, unscripted ones. It's also a test in the best sense of the word. Playfulness is trust extended. And when he plays back, when he grins and joins the moment, it becomes a shared language. A secret between two people who have built enough safety to stop being serious all the time. Do not underestimate how healing that is, because play is the antidote to despair. It's how we remember that even in struggle, beauty still exists, that even in chaos we can find moments of levity. And a woman who brings that into a man's life becomes more than a lover. She becomes a lighthouse, a reminder that joy is not frivolous, it's essential. But this must be said, playfulness requires emotional intelligence. It's not about ignoring pain, it's about transcending it momentarily without denial. It's not teasing to wound, it's teasing to wake up the soul. And when it's grounded in love and awareness, it's magnetic. Many relationships fail not because of betrayal or abuse, but because of boredom. Because the spark was never tended to. Because seriousness replaced spontaneity. So if you want to keep a man's heart engaged, don't just nurture his ambition or soothe his stress. Light him up. Pull him into the kind of laughter that shakes the weight off his shoulders. Let your touch say, you're allowed to be playful here. You're allowed to breathe. And in that, you'll do something few people ever truly do. You'll not just be a partner in responsibility, but a partner in joy, and that joy will not just bond him to you. It will make him better, happier, freer. Because when a man finds someone who can spark his laughter, even in the middle of a storm, he doesn't just love her, he cherishes her. The touch of vulnerability, opening the heart. There's a moment in every meaningful relationship where the masks come off, where strength gives way to softness, where performance yields to presence. And in that moment, love doesn't roar, it whispers. It says, "You can put your sword down now. You are safe here." This is the essence of the touch of vulnerability, the kind that opens a man's heart in a way almost nothing else can. You see, men are conditioned biologically, culturally, psychologically to guard themselves. And this isn't weakness, it's adaptive. From a young age, boys are told directly or indirectly that emotion is danger, that too much softness leads to pain, that if they expose the fragile parts of themselves, they'll be judged, rejected, or seen as lesser. So many men build fortresses around their feelings, not because they don't want to be vulnerable, but because they've learned it's not safe to be. That's why the right kind of touch, the touch of emotional openness, is so powerful. It bypasses the intellect. It tells the nervous system, "You can rest now." It dissolves years of silent tension in seconds. A woman resting her head against a man's chest, reaching for his hand in silence, or wrapping him in an embrace not to fix him, but simply to hold him, These are not gestures of weakness. These are gestures of tremendous strength. Because to say, "I trust you with my softness," is not a small act. It's revolutionary. The truth is, when a woman allows herself to be vulnerable, not performative, not manipulative, but genuinely open, she's giving him permission to do the same. Her touch says, "Son, I don't need perfection from you, I need truth," and that frees him. It releases him from the exhausting cycle of having to constantly be on enough, constantly solve, constantly strive. Now, make no mistake, vulnerability isn't about emotional dumping or constant neediness. It's not chaotic or unboundaried. It's the courageous decision to be seen as you are. And that kind of exposure, when shared, reciprocated, and held with care, builds real intimacy. Most relationships hover on the surface. They exchange facts, schedules, social gestures, but the relationships that transform us, they are built in those sacred moments where one person says, "Tear is where I hurt," and the other responds not with fear but with stillness. That stillness, the moment of simply being with one another in truth, is where love becomes anchored. The man who has never known real vulnerability may initially resist it. He might pull back, he might joke, he might retreat into silence. That's not rejection, that's habit, that's self-protection. But when you touch him with gentleness without demanding he open up, when your touch says, "Increte, I'm here whenever you're ready," you create the kind of safety that begins to crack the walls. And here's what most people don't realize: many men crave this. They ache for it. They want to be held, not just physically, but emotionally. They want someone who won't flinch when they share their fear, who won't try to fix it, who won't weaponize their weakness later. They want someone who says, "Course, you don't scare me. I can hold what you carry." That kind of love, that kind of feminine power, it's unforgettable. Because while the world applauds men for what they do, what they conquer, what they accomplish, very few people ask them how they feel. Very few people reach across the space and say, "Let me in," not to change you, but to understand you. The woman who does that through wordless presence, through soft touch, through eyes that don't look away, becomes irreplaceable. Because vulnerability, when met with love instead of judgment, creates a bond stronger than lust, stronger than logic, stronger than fear. So if you want to open a man's heart, don't just try to get closer physically. Reach him emotionally. Show him, not through argument, but through embodiment. That connection doesn't require perfection. It requires truth. That you're willing to go deeper than surface comfort. That you're willing to feel with him, not just stand beside him. Because when a man realizes he can be fully himself with you, not just the polished version, not just the provider or protector, but the whole, raw, real man, he will give you a kind of love that is quiet, steady, and unyielding. And it all begins with that one courageous, sacred act, the touch that says, "I trust you enough to be vulnerable here, and I invite you to do the same." That's not just romance. That's revolutionary intimacy.